While you think of what emotion you happen to be feeling at the moment, I'll just make a few personal comments. Really blessed to be here with you tonight and this whole week. Blessed to worship with you and to remember our Lord in special ways on Sunday. Study the Bible with you, some of you personally and all of us together. Some of you have, and I know, have struggled to be here. Busy weeks, lots going on, and still you have sacrificed to be here. Appreciate that. Wrestle with your kids, wrestle with your schedule. I appreciate that. Some of you are tired, and I'll try to keep you awake. And some of you have opened your homes to me and have fed my wife and I and have done all kinds of hospitable things, and you've encouraged us throughout the week. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that and what the church here is doing, and even the church helping in further the Hispanic and Spanish-speaking work. It's so important. I have a great interest in that, even though I can't speak Spanish. I think that's a really important thing that you're doing. And most of all, we got to thank Bill, love Bill, and love what he's doing here. He loves you and loves the gospel, and that's clear. And fruit is being born. Good things are happening here. Really, always hear such good things about what you're doing, and Bill is always in the middle of it. He was not a very good hostess, but he was a good host. And I think you would take that as a compliment. He just opened his house and his garage and everything. He just come in, here's how to set the thermostat, and here's the refrigerator, and here's just whatever. And gave us his own bed, and it's fantastic what he has done. Made us feel so comfortable. We joke around a lot, kid around a lot, and that's because we're close enough, we love each other enough to be able to do that, and I appreciate that. We benefit from those talks and studies that we have with each other personally, and we do that at other times, sometimes on different subjects, share materials that we find that are good. And that's a really special thing. I know several churches that have been looking for a gospel preacher and struggling to find somebody who will not only preach the truth, but do it in a way that really connects with people. And sometimes maybe we wonder, who else is out there or whatever. And I'm just telling you, you have somebody special with Bill, and we get used to that specialness, and we don't appreciate what we have, and don't always compliment it and support it as we ought to. And I want you to rally around to him and encourage him because that's what we do as God's people. We encourage those who are encouraging us, and we recognize even if we ourselves are weak, we can at least be an encouragement, and I expect you to do that. I don't know how you're feeling at the moment. Some of you are happy to be here. Maybe some of you aren't happy to be here. I'm going to tell you right now that this lesson is titled Various Ways. Your kids are going to want to hear this. Some of you are wondering, what that's going to be about. I would be tempted to preach in blue jeans and a t-shirt if that would connect with some of you a little bit better. I do wear blue jeans and t-shirts, not usually to preach. I do text. And I even have some Bible studies via text. So some of these are not completely foreign to me. So maybe I'm a little bit cooler than maybe you think that I am. But I'm not going to pretend to be cool today. That's not how I'm going to connect with you. And if you don't connect with me at all, maybe that's all right if you will just at least connect with the Lord. And sometimes we get so stuck on who is speaking to us, how they speak to us, and what they look like, and their age, and all that kind of stuff, and we miss the message. And sometimes the message is really cool, but it's not true. So we got to be really careful. The message for today, I'll just tell you. Here comes a spoiler, okay? So not so you'll go sleep, but so you'll figure out how we're going to get there. I'm just going to tell you that God is the God of young people. And sometimes I suspect that we forget that. Because a lot of times the leaders and the teachers and people like that are older people. There's a reason for that. We're not going to talk a lot about today why God wants some older people sometimes to be the ones that lead us in wisdom and experience and knowledge. But you think about how God has connected with and used young people in the past. If I just pause for a second, can you think of some people who were young in the Bible? People like Joseph, probably a teenager when he got sold by his brothers. And what are you going to do as a young teen getting sold by your brothers? You think your life is over. You are never going home. Your parents aren't going to know what you're doing. Maybe your God, you just only think about maybe your God feels like you abandoned you. And what does Joseph do down in Egypt? Not only does he thrive, but him to sin, and he says, I won't do this sin against God. David. I don't know what you think about David, but when he killed Goliath, most likely a young teen, and all of his older brothers and grown men terrified of this giant. And here is young David who takes him on, not because he's confident he can do it, but because he's so spiritually minded that he can tap into his confidence and his faith in his God, that God will see him through it. Samuel, just a boy. And God uses him as even a young man in a powerful way. Ruth, almost certainly a young woman. A whole book written just about her and her stand for truth. Mary, the mother of Jesus, almost certainly a teenager. Married, almost all virgin women were married when they were very young in Palestine. And look at the faith. Look at what people must have thought when she got pregnant, okay? What Joseph himself thought, The guy you're engaged to, what is he going to think, okay? But he's righteous, and he turns to understand what God is working, and she describes herself when talking to the angel as, I am the handmaid of the Lord. I'll do whatever you want. Wow, how many teenagers you think would be willing to do that? Tons of questions must have been swirling around in her head. And she just said, I'm going to do what God wants me to do. God was the God of Daniel, lion's den, young man, or fairly young man, especially Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would have been young. Daniel was certainly young when he wouldn't eat that food, remember? That the king was going to, when they got in captivity, wouldn't eat that food because it wasn't according to the law of God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wouldn't bow down to the idol, going to get thrown in the furnace of fire. One thing that's fascinating to me about what they say is that here are these young men, not going to fall down. You realize there's a couple things. First of all, they are far away from home. Nobody's going to know. Family's not going to know. Who knows? Just going to. So why not just do this thing and save your life? What good is it going to be to die? But they won't sin against God. You say, yeah, but God saved them. Yes. But when they stood before the king, they said that God had the power to save them. But even if he didn't save them, they wouldn't bow down to the idol. So they didn't know if God was going to save them or not. They didn't know how this was going to work out. And yet these young men would not bow down to the idol. Took a stand for faith. What about, here's an odd one. Remember the feeding of the 5,000? We're told in John chapter 6 that it was a boy's lunch, basically. The the 5 loaves and 2 small fish. God used a boy in his lunch to do something that one of the few miracles that all 4 of the Gospels mention. Josiah, king of Israel, at the age of 8. Age of 8. You think if you're 8 years old, you think I'm not talking to you today, you're wrong. You're wrong. You are, you're a person that can grow to be somebody great. He reigned over Israel for 31 years. Jesus, at the age of 12 in the temple. Impressive. 12 years old. At 12 years old, are you going to be able to ask intelligent questions? Are you going to be able to give some intelligent answers? You wonder, why is it that my mom and dad are saying you need to learn these things? Well, Jesus was already pretty well schooled at the age of 12. Of course, all the Bible people were kids at some point. Every one of them. And most of the ones that we know today, we probably wouldn't know their names had it not been for what happened to them when they were young. So, God is the God of young people. He's not just the God of old people. So I have a strange request right now. Bill, I think I saw a roll of duct tape on the back there over the coat rack. Would you bring that to me? This is not playing, so I forgot to bring duct tape, and I saw, you'll see what that's about here in just a few minutes. God being the God of young people doesn't just mean that his commands apply to you. It means more than that. God being the God of young people, thank you, means that God loves you, that God is patient as you try to understand and figure stuff out. It means that he knows you, that he doesn't just know you when you're an adult, that when you become somehow, off on your own. God is the God of young people, and that means that he cares about you. He knows what you're going through. He knows what other young people are doing to you. He knows what you want. He knows what you do. That the hairs of your head are numbered, not just those of your parents. And he knows what is best for you. He knows what is in the best interest, and he has your best interest at heart. He really cares about you. You understand that Jesus knows what it's like to live here. And he knows what it's like to live here as a young person. And he knows what it's like to live here with brothers and sisters and learning. He knows what it's like to have to go through what you're going through, the changes in your body and the changes with your family and parents that don't understand sometimes. Clearly, Joseph and Mary, especially Mary, it says she doesn't really fully understand what was going on in some of the circumstances with Jesus. It just says she kept the things in her heart. I think she was like, what was that? But she just went with it. Jesus never tells us to do things that he wasn't willing to do himself. So think about it for a minute. We're familiar with Ephesians 6:1, where it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Colossians 3 and verse 20 say essentially the same thing. But look over at Luke chapter 2. I know that it's tough for you to obey your parents sometimes. But in Luke chapter 2 and verse 51, it says, then he, that's Jesus, went down with them and came to Nazareth and was to them, but his mother kept all these things in their heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men. What did Jesus do? He obeyed his parents. So as tough, as big a struggle as that may be for you, when your parents are trying to encourage you to learn obedience, they're trying to encourage you to follow in the steps of Jesus. That's what they're teaching you. And you may not see it right away because it's clean your room and it's be home before 10 and all these kind of things. But they're helping you learn obedience and respect, which Jesus himself learned. In John chapter 6 and verse 38, there's an interesting verse that says that Jesus hadn't come to do his own will, but to do of his Father, the will of his Father who sent him. The reason that that's interesting is that Jesus knows what it's like to have a father. Jesus knows what it's like to do what somebody else wants you to do. Jesus knows what it's like to put his will, what he wants, what would be easy for him, aside and do what his Father wanted him to do. Jesus said, listen, I know what that's like. I know what that's like. In all things. And I just want to suggest to you that the world is not your friend. And this is good news. You know that the word good news means gospel. The word gospel means good news. Now, you might say, well, why is that good news? That the world is not my friend? And the reason that that's good news is, I'll tell you what, you don't have to compete anymore. When you're a follower of Christ, you don't have to compete in the world to be worthwhile, to be viewed as a good person, to be successful. You don't have to earn your self-worth. This is super important, guys. This is super important. In the world, you have to earn your self-worth. You have to feel good about yourself. You feel good about yourself only when the world says you're good enough. And so we're trying to exercise enough. We're trying to look nice enough. We're trying to have the clothes that are good enough. Trying to have a car that is good enough. And if it's not, they put us down. And we feel bad about ourselves. In Christ, we don't have to earn our self-worth. Our self-worth is based on who we are in Christ. Your self-esteem doesn't depend on yourself. Isn't that kind of weird? Your self-esteem doesn't depend on yourself. You won't be as smart as everybody. You won't be as fast as everybody. You won't be as pretty from the world's perspective as everybody. But how you feel about yourself doesn't depend on those things. Or on anything else for that matter. Your self-esteem is going to depend on the fact that God is pleased with you. That God has forgiven you, that God says that you are worth so much that I'll give my son to die for you. That's how much you're worth to God. Even as you are, that's how much you are worth to God. You can quit struggling to live up to the world's expectations. There's all the ads, there's all the media. This is what success looks like. This is what coolness looks like. This is what fun looks like. It's your body image. It's your status in life. It's how many friends you have on social media. How many thumbs up you get when you post a picture. How many people like it? If they think it's beautiful. If they think you're beautiful. We can quit struggling to live up to the world's expectations because it doesn't matter to us anymore. And we don't have to be embarrassed. We don't have to be embarrassed that we don't have the expensive shoes, that we don't have the newest phone, that we don't drive the fastest, coolest car. We don't have to be embarrassed because my self-image is not, who I am is not tied up in that. I can remember one time I drove up and somebody said, well, I can see you're not a car guy. Okay, there was some rust, some smoke, a weird noise. I try to take care of my cars, okay? I actually like cars. I'm kind of a car guy. I work on my cars, which maybe explains some things, but I'm not my car. My car is not me. And what you see, if my car is dirty, I try to keep it clean, but if my car is dirty, that doesn't speak to who I am. If my car has some rust, that's That's not speaking to who I am. In fact, maybe it does speak to who I am, that I'm not all about my car. I'm all about something else. I don't have to be embarrassed when I make a mistake because I can be forgiven. I can ask you for forgiveness. I've made mistakes this week and just kind of laughed them off. Sometimes I say something backwards and we can say it right. And I don't do that just because, well, we're only human or whatever, but because I'm trying to be the best that I can in service to you and to God. And when I make a mistake, I can apologize and go on. Try to do better. Here's an important thing. The world is not your friend, and that's good news because you have a safe and soft place to land when you fail, and you don't in the world. I'm going to tell you that there's plenty of people in the world that will say, hey, if you make a mistake, I'll be there for you. But they won't be. Not if the mistake is big enough, bad enough. But in Christ, God will always take you back. You have a safe place to land. You can confess anything to him. Of course you can confess anything to you because he already knows it. There's some weird stuff in the book of Psalms. If you read some of the Psalms, there's some pretty harsh stuff where the psalmist seems to be expressing a lot of doubt and a lot of anger and a lot of conflict in his heart. And you're going, how can he say that to God? And I'll tell you the answer. Because he feels it and God already knows it. So yes, take it to God. Give it to God. You can throw up all of that stuff, all of that garbage, and God says, I'll take it and clean you up and forgive you. You have a soft place to land. And I'll tell you, God's people aren't perfect, but God's people will try to forgive you and to take you back with them too. When nobody else will take you back. You have something to do. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yes, you do. I mean, you may not know what your career is going to be. You may not know what your thing in life is going to be, the thing that you find the most important and so exciting. But you know one thing, you're going to be a child of God. And that's going to touch absolutely everything in your life in a positive sort of way. You have a purpose. What's the purpose of life? Christians are the only ones who really know that. Everybody else is just kind of playing around in the dirt trying to find something that's going to make them some money and maybe bring them a little bit of happiness or pleasure. And they're trying to figure out what the purpose of life is. The purpose of life is serving God, being holy. And we know that. That's good news that the world is not your friend, because the world's just going to say, yeah, go out there and try stuff. You understand that trial and error is trial and sin, trial and mistake. Error is kind of a nice word, but it's a disaster word. There's almost no other aspect of life that we say just go out and try stuff and see if it kills you or not. You have a purpose. And you have boundaries that you can know without trial and error. Boundaries are good. Every once in a while you hear about boundaries like at Niagara Falls, where people jump over the fence. And you say, is a boundary a good thing or a bad thing? Every once in a while you hear about people falling. Somebody fell into the Grand Canyon, and they interviewed a ranger. And they said, what are you going to do about this? And he says, well, the Grand Canyon isn't idiot-proof. Okay? I doubt that his job survived that comment, but it's true. There are boundaries that God has set, and they're not to keep you from having fun. They're not to try to ruin your life or keep you from experiencing life. These boundaries are to help you avoid the massive problems that the world has. You don't have to, by trial and error, find out if things are right or wrong. God will help you with that. And you don't have to make all the same mistakes that other people have made. And that's a good thing. You can learn from their mistakes. And let me just mention that you have a free will. That God has given you the ability to choose. And this is a beautiful thing. It's a thing that makes you different from any other creature on earth. All other creatures are making choices based on instinct and training and survival. And you can buck all of that and make a decision based on evidence and information. It's a big chunk of that part of God that is in you. In my opinion, when God made us in his own image, it's not my hands. Monkeys have hands kind of like this. In fact, I think in some ways some monkeys have better hands than I do. When I watch them climbing on stuff and things like that, it's not my eyes. Eagles have better eyes than I have. Okay? Snakes have better tails than I have and can do amazing things with them. And so some animals can run, most animals can run. Okay, all animals can run faster than I can. So what advantage do I have? In what way am I in the image of God? It's got to have something to do with my ability to understand and make decisions, to choose. And you've got that. That's why in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 9 it says, "Rejoice, O man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for these things God will bring you into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow from your heart and put evil away from your flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity." He says, go ahead. It's good for you to live your life, to make choices. But you remember that God has put this in you, the ability to make choices. You better make wise choices, good choices, righteous choices, because God's going to judge you. And I'm going to tell you, childhood and youth are vanity. In other words, you're not going to be young forever. And then what? Ecclesiastes 12, very next verse, in verse 1. "Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come and the years draw near, when you say, I have no pleasure in them." It seems like you have plenty of time to decide, plenty of time to live your life. When I was preaching in Europe, there was a fairly young man that said to me, "I don't want to obey the gospel now because I'm too young. I want to enjoy life now, and maybe when I don't want to have fun anymore, like when I'm 50, then maybe I'll become a Christian." Okay, well, I'm almost 60, so I guess I'm dead. But you understand, this man never turned to serve the Lord. He's 50 now. There comes a time, and he goes on to say, there comes a time when I'm just telling you, if you don't choose now, if you don't prepare now, there's a really good chance that you have gotten your head so stuck in the world that when the gospel comes along, you're going to say, I'm not interested in that stuff because I'm just interested in money and friends and all this kind of stuff. You think that you won't be that way. But he says, you will be that way. You won't be thinking the right way when you're older. So he's telling us, rejoice, but no, remember your Creator, remember him now. This is why your mom and dad are taking you to Bible classes, why your mom and dad are trying to have Bible studies with you and talk about spiritual things when you're younger. And let me just point out the obvious, and that is that roads go places. In other words, what I mean by that is that you're going to make choices, and you don't always stop and think about where that choice leads. And the Bible is constantly using road illustrations that when we make a choice to go in a certain direction, that road has an end, has a consequence. Proverbs chapter 2 and verse 20 says, so you may walk in the way of goodness and keep to the paths of righteousness. There's a great verse here in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 2. For I give you, he says, I give you good advice. Do not forsake my law. We could read this whole chapter, and it's wisdom saying, follow what I'm teaching you. Skip on down to verse 14. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn away from it and pass on. Why? Because it's going somewhere that you don't want to go. I remember one time there was a movie, John Wayne movie, and there was this girl, young girl, had this giant gun, and she kept looking down the barrel of the gun. And he kept pushing it away from her, and finally he said, don't look in there. And she said, why not? I said, because there ain't anything in there that you want to see. The evil path is not good because there's nothing on that path that you want to see. It's going where you don't want to go. Look at verse 19. The way of the wicked is like darkness. And this is what's fascinating. They do not know what makes them stumble. So some of your friends may be doing some things. Your parents are telling you, the Bible's saying that these are wrong things, and we're stepping back and we're saying, I don't see why it's so bad. And then all of a sudden something bad happens. Somebody gets pregnant, somebody gets a disease, somebody ODs, somebody gets arrested. And you know what they're saying? I don't know what happened. What's going on here? I'm just unlucky. But he says, people don't make the connection. They get on the wrong road, and then when bad things happen, God's been warning, don't go down there. And then when they fall over the rail because they were leaning over too far, and then they say, well, I don't understand how I got hurt. It's not always obvious that the broad way leads to destruction. That's in Matthew chapter 7. And that the narrow way leads to life. It's not always obvious to people, but it is what it is. Let me just remind you about something that you are wired to learn. So learn what is important. You have time. The world a lot of times pushes you out of the nest. A lot of times the world says, come on, grow up. The world says be an adult. But God says, use this protective environment that you have right now to learn what is right. You don't have to be in charge yet. You don't have all the anxiety that goes along with adult decisions yet. So use this as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to feed yourself on the things that are good and right. I read just the other day, someone said, your diet is not only what you eat, it is what you watch, it is what you listen to, it is what you read, and it is the people that you hang around with. Feed yourself, but understand that you are going to grow in the direction that you feed yourself. That your diet is directly responsible for your growth. And so spiritually and emotionally and mentally, feed yourself on things that are good. And train your heart, not just your body. When our bodies are strong, we like to exercise them. It's not wrong to exercise, but sometimes we lose sight of what's most important. I don't think it's a coincidence that in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 8, that Paul writes to young Timothy, a young man, reminding him that bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is profitable for all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. You have a great opportunity to grow While your mind is easy to train, your body is easy to train. Train your desires. That's this 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 22 verse, which teaches us to flee youthful lusts. Sometimes we think that all the Bible does is tell us what not to do. So there's a reason that it tells us what not to do, but this verse tells us more. Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. He's telling us, he's saying, yeah, run away from those things, but he's not leaving us empty. He's not saying don't do anything. Just sit at home and just, veg out. It's saying no, but pursue these things. Chase after. Look for opportunities to grow in areas of righteousness and faith and love and peace. Pure heart. What can I do in order to grow more in this area? So don't walk away from here thinking that I'm telling you just to stop doing bad things and run away from bad things. I am saying run away from bad things, but to good things. Fill yourself up with good things. And this is super important, that we need to be careful what we love and who we love. Warnings about sex before marriage are not stopping you from learning and experiencing love. And a lot of people think that that's the case, that waiting until marriage is a thing that is denying us opportunities to experience all of life, and it's kind of robbing us of some great thing and some great pleasure. But God knows what's good for us, and He knows what's best for us. And He's the one, as much as we maybe don't like to talk about it very much, that God is the one who invented sex. He invented it. That means He knows more about it than you do, more about it than I do. And He knows when it is the best. And He knows what it's for. And when you study about the oneness of marriage, what you find out is that love is supposed to be more than just a feeling and more just about romance and more than just about pleasure, but that love is something that bonds us together. And in marriage we become one with one another. One in a sense that's hard to describe outside of marriage. So much, it's so close to one another that God uses the word oneness to describe His relationship with Jesus and with the Holy Spirit, and ultimately with us in Christ. It's a beautiful thing. And God said that one thing that is going to help us stay stuck together in this oneness is sex. And God designed it to be something that is like glue that sticks us to one another. And so, when we participate in it, it sticks us to one another. And it's very sticky. And sex helps us lose ourselves in one another and experience a close oneness that is both physical and mental and emotional and spiritual. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm going to tell you that sex in the media and on TV and on the internet and everything is so messed up because it's just about pleasure. Sex involves pleasure, but that's not what it's really about. It's about getting so close to somebody that you can't be any closer in any way. It sticks you to that person. And it's not the only thing that sticks you to that person, but it is a thing that solidifies and helps maintain that oneness all throughout your married life. By the way, you married couples need to remember this, that's what it's about, and we need to work on using it as something that draws us closer, not something that that we use to manipulate one another or to be selfish. But let me just go back for a minute. So what happens if you aren't married? Okay? And so you do this thing, of course, people say they do it for love, and they say that they do it because they want to be close to one another. And so they do this, and then they break up. Oh boy. Okay? That felt worse than I thought. Okay? And it hurts. Talk to people after their first sexual experience and then they break up. It was something, I thought we had something special. It was we're going to be together forever. I heard one man who was extremely involved in lots of sexual relationships say he didn't like to have relationships with virgins because every time after their first time, they felt so stuck to that person and they wanted to just go on to the next person. But that person, that girl, became too attached. Well, of course, that's what sex is supposed to do to us. Okay, so time for another one. And that one breaks up. Didn't hurt quite so bad. Okay? Here comes another one. Didn't hurt quite so bad. Here comes another. Well, now it's not even sticking anymore. And pretty soon, the sexual relationship doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm not saying that people still don't do it and still don't have some kind of pleasure involved with it, but what I mean is the thing that God originally intended for it to do in a relationship is gone. And people say, I don't see what the big deal is anymore with that. And the Bible says wait until marriage. You say, are you kidding me? And they say, yeah, it's supposed to be this thing that sticks us together. And say, I don't get it. So waiting until marriage, or if you've already done it, stopping and now saving yourself in this for somebody special will actually make it better. Do you know why it makes it better? It's not because some old book says it'll make it better. It's because God, who designed your body, God, who designed your mind, God, who designed your spirit and your emotions, God, who designed sex, made it that way. He made it that way. Married people have more sex than unmarried people. The movies don't make it sound like that. TV shows, internet. But the studies show that that's the case. And what that means is that your parents know more about it than your friends do. Your friends are probably wrong about most things about sex. Your friends are probably wrong about most things about life. Your friends are probably wrong about drugs and alcohol and smoking. Your friends are probably wrong about most of those kind of things, not because young people are wrong about all things, but because God is right about everything. That's why. Things will go better. Ephesians chapter 6, which we read earlier, will go better if you listen to those who have more life experience, your parents, for example. Google is not your friend when it comes to right and wrong. It's not. Google it. Doesn't matter what Google has to say. Google is not the Lord. Social media is not your friend. Crowdsourcing is not your friend when it comes to right and wrong. I have Facebook, okay? So I'm not just completely anti-social media. Got a lot of friends that have Twitter and Snapchat and all these other things. And I'm not totally against all those kind of things. But what I am saying, when it comes down to right and wrong, we don't poll our friends. That's not how we figure it out. We go to the Lord. Because you understand that your friends are fickle. Today they love you, tomorrow they don't. You understand that your friends and that the world are telling you that you need things to belong to feel worthwhile, to be special, to be important, when really all you need to be as a child of God to have self-worth and self-esteem. You know, you are special and you are important to God. In the world, you stand at the door of the world thinking something about you. And they're ready. They're ready to tell you that you're ugly, that you're fat, that you're dumb, friendless, alone, not cool, nobody understands you, you're not special, you're not accepted, you're weird, you're not good enough, no one likes you, everyone hates you, no one wants you. Do you matter? And so what do? We claw and we fight and we work to try to impress the world, to be good enough, fast enough, beautiful enough, thin enough, muscular enough, cool enough. And it changes. Just about when you think, I saw this book, Who Moved My Cheese? I love the title. I don't know what the book's about. I really like that because you're the rat and you're chasing around in the rat race trying to get to the cheese. And when you get to where the cheese was, the cheese isn't there anymore. I saw a quote that said, if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. But Christians aren't rats. That's why we can live above the world. We can live above the rat race. That's why we don't have to chase the cheese that the world puts out there. We can in Galatians 6 and verse 10, do good to all, especially those who are of the household of faith. We are living to do good. We have a special purpose in life. And what gave us that special purpose, the famous John 3:16 verse, that God loved us so much that he gave his son to die for us. And so while the world is telling us that we're not special, while the world is telling us that to be special we have to live up to their expectations, God is saying that you can be a special person in Christ. That you can be, 1 Peter 2 and verse 9, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, who were once not a people, we were nobody, but you are now the people of God, who have not obtained mercy. We were living in sin, doing all kinds of wrong stuff, but now have obtained mercy. Don't you forget who you are. I can remember when I was young, a bunch of us kids going out to do something, and my mom and dad would say, don't forget who you are. And that didn't mean David Allen Diestelkamp. It meant I'm a child of God, a special person, special to God. Special to God. Now act like it. You are somebody important. Your body belongs to God. Your mind, your spirit are his. He wants to dwell in you. And when somebody puts you down as ugly or stupid or not cool, from a worldly perspective, I don't know, maybe that's true, I don't know. But that's not the way we look at things. From God's perspective, we're special. And he chose us. Hey, I want you. A royal priesthood. That means people who can worship and serve him in a special way. A holy nation. His own special people. That's who you can be. That's who you were born to be. Special. Don't you dare let the world tell you that you're anything else. You are just as you ought to be, and God will make you better. If you're not a child of God, That's what he's calling you to. Not a life of just a whole bunch of don't do this, but a life full of service to God and others. To live a life its fullest, the very best life in every single aspect. The world says, no, we can do it better. And God says, oh, no, you can't. I made that. I made his body. I made her mind. I made those emotions. I made those feelings. You do it my way. It will be the best. If you want an awesome life, serve the Lord. And if you need to come to him now and obey him, even maybe be baptized this day, to join him in a walk of life that takes you from this life to heaven, tell us while we stand and sing this song.
Would you live for Jesus and be always pure?